All right, it's 5:30. So we will go ahead and get the meeting of the Halifax Finance Committee open at 5:30. Here present in the Great Hall is Cheryl Burke, Frank Johnston, Ed Bryan, Bill Smith, and myself, and we have Mike Rignetto on as Zoom. Also with us up here is Lindsay Martinelli, the town accountant. So one of the It's not me.
It's not me. I'm not dialed in. Somebody's hardening themselves.
Did you get that, Mike? Oh, I think it's feedback. Okay, so first order of business is some meeting minutes. So we had a set for the 22nd of April come out. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those?
Yes.
Does anybody have any adds, changes, or deletions? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the meetings from the 22nd of April?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? EJ?
I was not present.
Okay. Bill Smith?
Yes.
Mike Rignetta?
Yes.
Thank you. Frank Johnston?
Yes.
Cheryl Burke?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, so those carry as approved. All right. So those are all the meeting minutes, I believe, that are available. So the next item that we have, moving on, is we have Mr. Diaz here who would like to talk about Article 22.
It's all one set of plans or just?
There is one that's a little different. This is my original subdivision,
Okay.
and that shows a lot.
Okay, so you got two original subs here.
All right.
That's the original, and this is the proposed on the proposed.
So before we get started, Mr. Diaz, I'm just going to read into the record Article 22. So we all know what
That's
we're
fine.
talking about. Okay? So this is coming off of the warrant that was mailed out to all the residents. So Article 22,
Two lots.
2 lots?
Two lots, correct?
Yes, correct.
Hold on. There we go. Article 22, to see if the town will vote in accordance with Chapter 40, Section 15 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as amended, will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell lots 135 and 136 as shown on map 20 on Vernon Street off of Snow Street to an abutter for the sum of money no less than $500 plus legal fees, it being of the opinion that the selectmen that such land is no longer required for public use. Proposed by Alan Diaz and signed by 13 others. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Alan Diaz, Snow Street. I want to bring your attention originally to this particular plan. It's the older plan. I'm going to point out why that I'm here. This particular plan is a subdivision of land. I got about 35 acres. When I built my house originally in 1979, 1978, I had an engineer provide me with this particular plan, which we took the land court to Form A. So as you can see, there's a cul-de-sac, and then to the left of the cul-de-sac is just vacant land. So as time went on, in the late 80s, 1989, I filed for a building permit and I had a zoning change, and I put up a commercial building in this area here. So if you go to this particular plan,
Is that the one that's on Lot 2, existing building?
the building, Lot 1 is my residence, Lot 2 would be the commercial building.
Yeah. So that's commercial property then, Lot 2?
Yes, Lot 1 and 2 are commercial. So when we bring over to this particular plan, which is an aerial shot, and what we did is we overlaid the zoning map or the assessor's map onto this particular plan. So I'll bring your attention to the cul-de-sac, and then to the right of that is my residence. Well, to the left of that, you can see I have an existing building. And through that building is Vernon Street. So I didn't find that out until the late 90s, that this plan was wrong. So, having that particular dilemma, based on the advice from council, what I decided to do was to wait the necessary time, and that I would have to quiet my title by relinquishing all the rights on Vernon Street. Now, on Vernon Street, it's a paper street that the only people that are on Vernon Street is the town of Halifax. That would be lots 135 and lots 136 at the end of Vernon Street. At the lower section, that's all vacant land that belongs to myself. And then in front of that are small lots, which I've acquired either through purchase or through the town back in the late 70s, early 80s. So in order for me to quiet the title, I need to relinquish all the rights on Vernon Street and take that property by adverse possession. So I have two options. I buy this particular property from the town, and then I own everything. I can clearly relinquish I can get rid of the rights on Vernon Street. The other option I have is to give the town an easement from Pine Street north across, it would be lot number 1138, which I own, give them an easement to this particular property. The lots, I think, are 3,200 square feet. So they have no value. I'm the abutter. Do I need them for anything? No, not to build on. My sole purpose is to clean up the title of this particular property.
Can you repeat what you just said is to clean up and what?
Just to clean up the title on the property.
Okay.
So does Vernon Street actually exist through your property line right now?
No.
So just for clarification, so I see 136. Can I don't see a 135. Can I assume that it's just the one just to the right of 136, or?
The way they have it labeled, there should be a line through the 20, so it's lot 135 would be on the left, and then 136 is on the right. So it's a combination of those two lots.
Okay, so 20-136 where it says that box that's there.
Correct. That's 135 and 136, yes.
Oh, okay.
So isn't there already a process for municipalities to sell property already in the Massachusetts general law?
There's multiple ways for people to purchase property.
Yeah.
In the past, I bought a lot of this particular property the same way that I'm doing now, going by town meeting. The other alternative is if the town wanted to auction it, if they want to put up an auction, then that's a way to buy the property.
So when was the last time you bought land from the
Early
town?
80s.
So 30 years ago.
Correct.
So and it's been, I guess, assessed by, I don't know, a bank or some type of
No, I
Valuation.
basically use the assessor's information. I think the value on the property is $400, based on the assessor's records.
And that was assessed when?
It would be the last assessment period.
So like 30 years ago.
No, this was the last assessment.
Okay.
So that's the value as of record.
Which is,
The value is what?
is what?
That's the value as of record right now.
What's the dollar amount? The value, the dollar?
The value is, I believe, $400. That's the
400.
assessed value right now.
Yeah, by the town.
Yes.
What are you looking for from the finance committee?
What I'm looking to do is I'm looking for the Finance Committee support on this article. I did read in the book that they didn't support it. I didn't know you were going to be discussing it. It's a matter of when I file in land court, if the town is an owner, then they're going to be a defendant. So for the amount of legal fees the town is going to spend for me just to give them an easement, doesn't make a lot of sense. Like I say,
Does the town want an easement?
what won't make sense is when I file an action in the land court to quiet this title, I have to put the town on notice.
I understand that.
So through that process, what are we gonna have, what are you gonna have for legal fees?
So why aren't we, if we're going to follow that process, why aren't we following the standard process of the town auctioning it?
In my 40-something years in town, I haven't seen an auction.
Okay. Okay, and but that doesn't mean it's not the process.
No, you have multiple processes.
I understand that.
So I took the process that we've taken in the past.
Right.
In the 70s and the 80s. That's the same process I took.
I understand. I understand that you did this in the 80s. I get that. My confusion, or I guess where I kind of, and I'm looking at it from a way of, if we're going to allow to continue to do it that way, whether it's right or wrong, is one thing. But if we're going to break the process at this point, what's to stop us? What's to stop other residents from asking the town to break processes farther along? Because we've allowed it once, and maybe we allowed it 30 years ago. I don't know. I wasn't here.
Okay. I'm going to just disagree in the sense that I think it's the process the town has had. If they haven't had an auction and the town has sold property to abutters, I'm assuming they would have taken this avenue.
I think
honestly-
that's probably up to the selectmen more so than the finance committee. So I understand your point, and I guess the process is the town has to declare its surplus. It then has to be assessed or use the last assessment, and then it needs to be auctioned because property of the town should be auctioned.
And I can tell you that, again, in my 40 years, the town's never had an auction.
Okay, but that's the current process that I've found in Massachusetts law.
Yes.
Okay, I think if you do the research, you'll find that the process that I'm going through is a similar process, other than it puts the emphasis on town meeting. They're the ones that make the decision. If I thought that we could do an auction process, I would have gone that route. A few years ago, when I met with the assessor's office, I mean, like I say, with everybody new in town, the town owns hundreds of these lots.
Sure.
And they really shouldn't be on the town books anymore. They should be made available, in my opinion, to abutters for whatever reason.
Understand your opinion.
But the town has not taken that process to go on auction.
Okay.
So if they haven't, the last alternative is to use the process that they've used in the past.
Past practice doesn't make sense.
All right, I understand what you're asking. I don't think we're going to make a decision on that.
Oh, that's fine. I just want to bring it to your attention.
No, I
just want to
appreciate you.
explain-
I understand. So we're talking in the 80s, you bought property, town meeting, you went to town meeting, they voted to allow the town to sell it to you. Okay? Now you're coming back 30 years later, you want to buy another 2 plots of land, and you want to use the same process that you used 30 years ago.
Correct.
Right.
Can I just ask one question for clarity on the diagram that we're looking at? There's a lot of plots that have numbers assigned to them. There's a lot of plots that don't have numbers assigned to them. My understanding from listening to you is that you own all of this, correct?
Correct.
Does that include whether or not, does it include every single box that's depicted here, or is it?
Okay,
Just numbers or no numbers?
just to explain that when you get lots like 1056, those are 2 lots. This is how the town assesses it.
Yep.
So when they took it, however they took it, or whoever bought it, they bought those 2. So they keep continuing assessment. You get the 10144, all right? That was part of my original 1046. See, this is on.
Right, so I guess so stay on 144. If you look to the right, to the left of 144, you've got 7 blank boxes before you get to 135 and 136. What are those blank boxes that are there
Those are all particular lots.
that you own currently?
Yes.
Okay.
All of those were acquired from the town?
And some of these were acquired from the master deed. This property was a family property. My father, parents gave it to me in '76. It was a very large parcel, 30 some odd acres. So a lot of this you see down below is all part of that original acreage. And this is what we had to do because of the description. When I built my house, we carved out lot 1, and then lot 2 would be the remaining acreage.
So, did you buy any of these lots from the town previously?
Any of these lots?
Any of the lots on this plot that you gave us?
Yes.
How many, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say there's at least a dozen 30-foot by 80-foot lots that I bought. Some of these, like a 10154, there was another owner, and I believe 1152 was something I acquired in the 80s. But and bear in mind, when we talk about lots, they're only 30 feet by 80 feet.
But they're a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
Where did Vernon Street come from? I'm just curious, because it's not on the original plat.
Vernon Street was a subdivision from 1888.
Okay. That explains it.
Yeah. That's where it came from.
Yeah, no, I believe you.
Okay.
Okay.
And all of this land from Vernon Street, the north, was all carved up in 1888 by a gentleman named Jacob Wilbur. He created all these 30-foot by 80-foot lots. And he sold them, I was told, at whist parties. People bought them. Some of my deeds people have the rights to cut wood.
Right.
But they bought them, and then they abandoned them.
Okay.
Most of them got abandoned in the 20s.
Got it. Very good. I appreciate the information, Mr. Diaz. Very informative. Thank you so much.
Do you need those copies? If you don't...
No, you can have them. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan.
There you are, sir.
Thanks, Alan.
So, please, that stay our original.
That's what I'm thinking. But we can talk about that next week. Alrighty. So if there's no other questions for Mr. Diaz, we will go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which would be line item transfers. As we previously discussed, there are none this evening. They will be discussed on next Monday at our meeting prior to town meeting, which closes out that agenda item. We will move on to correspondence or as may arise. I haven't gotten any emails this week from any citizens. And is there anybody that has anything they would like to discuss with the committee while we're all here?
I have two things, Jim.
Certainly, sir.
So the first is we've settled our union contract, so I just wanted to give you an update on that. Ultimately, what we went through, two unions were created. One was a library unit, one was clerical administrative. We bargained two contracts, as you'd imagine, a lot of time and effort. We reached a tentative agreement. The contracts went to vote before the union, and the library unit decided that they did not want to be a union anymore. So we are going through that process to decertify by the state. We've never been through this. Our labor council hasn't necessarily been through this either. It's not very common. It's not common to form a new union in a Massachusetts municipality, and it's certainly not common to decertify before you even have a contract. So hopefully I'll have more information for you at some point. The good news is the clerical administrative union, which had most of the employees, the contract was agreed to, voted by the Board of Selectmen last week. As far as financial items that the Finance Committee would be of interest, there were a few things. The first is 2% COLA, which is in line with our other contracts. And we increased longevity by a couple $100 for the higher years. And then the other financial item is we did a health insurance opt-out. So ultimately, if you've held the health insurance for at least a year and you opt out, for a single plan, there's a dollar amount. I believe it's $1,200, and for a family plan, it's $2,000. In the long term, if that's utilized, that should save the town money, actually, because our cheapest plan, even for a single, is costing the town well over $10,000 a year. So even at that $1,200, if someone opts out, it's an annual savings year over year. But beyond that, those are the financial items. There was, right now, there's additional funds potentially that they're eligible for professional development. They're no longer eligible for that in their salary. They are eligible for up to $500 a year for courses, professional development, with a cap of $3,000 per bargaining unit. So again, not huge financial, really just in line with our other bargaining agreements. And then the other item is I'm sure you've all heard, but I'm resigning from my position as town administrator here. My last day will be sometime in July. With that, the town will likely need to do a recruitment with a search firm. There is a cost associated with that. So there likely will need to be a reserve fund transfer at some point during the year to cover that. It's just something that we didn't anticipate, and we don't have a cost at this point, but just wanted to keep the Finance Committee informed of that at some point, if a recruiter is used, there'll be a cost with that associated.
So the recruiter, is that a lump sum, or is that going to be a percentage of the salary for a payment?
It's lump sum.
Okay.
Yeah, typically lump sum. I tried pulling the information from the last recruitment, but somewhere in the range of $6,000 to $8,000 is I think what it was last time. I would anticipate falling under $10,000 depending on the firm.
Okay.
Yeah. And those are the two updates I have.
Cody, real quick, regarding the library union contract, are we expecting financial ramifications from the union regarding them pulling back the library staff?
No.
No.
So what we built into the budget, it was a 2% for everybody, non-union and union. So effectively, if they're non-union, they would fall under the wage and personnel still, be subject to a 2% cost living adjustment, which we built into the budget. So
Okay.
so yes, but not anything that we didn't already prepare for.
Well, that was a lot of work, and get to the 11th hour and it didn't happen, huh? Mm-hmm. Wow. After they already voted for it.
They vote. They voted for their unionization.
Yes.
They didn't vote on the contract. When they got to voting on the contract, I don't know, those are union meetings, but I was just told that they decided that they no longer wanted to be a union.
Okay.
Interesting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Cody, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything. You
Yeah,
worked
thank
your tail off for the town this past
appreciate
year,
it.
particularly during budget between you and Lindsay, and it's your big shoes to fill. So good luck
Thank
to you. We
No, I appreciate it. I look forward to working with you guys over the next few months. Like I said, I'll be here through at least mid-July. And you're in good hands with Lindsay. She's done a phenomenal job. And yeah, but it's been very good. Very bittersweet moment for me, but I think it's a good time for me and a good time for the town as well.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you, Cody. I've enjoyed working with you on several different things over the
Thank
last
you.
2 years, and I enjoyed being on the selection committee to find you as well.
You made a good choice.
Yeah, you did, because you were my number one choice.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. No, you guys have been great. I've been fortunate in town. The board has been nothing but supportive of me in everything that we've done. You guys, I've said it to some of you, I've said it to the selectmen, but you've been the best finance committee that I could ask for. And I'm not just saying that, I really mean it. You know, speaking with my peers and just seeing what other towns have, you guys are a well-rounded group, but you also kind of respect the people in the room, and that goes a long way. That doesn't really happen everywhere. So I will miss that, and I appreciate all of your support, and hopefully we get a lot of work done over the next few months.
Thank you, Cody.
Thanks,
Much
Cody.
appreciated.
Thanks.
And best of luck to you and your family.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So 27's budget will be done by July 30th. Is that
28. 28.
You'll have a good, all my financial projections are built out, so if you use those spreadsheets, you'll have a good idea of what you're looking at.
Oh, that's good stuff. Well, again, just to echo everyone else, Cody, you've done great work, and we certainly do appreciate the effort you've given us and some of the education you've given us.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been very helpful.
No, I appreciate it. Not going anywhere though. I mean, and my phone number won't change. You know, a lot of people have my number.
So we can call.
Halifax holds a special place in my heart. So if anyone, yeah, I'll always answer a phone call. So if anyone ever needs any assistance, I'm more than happy to help out where I can.
All right. Very good, sir. Anything else, Cody?
No, that is it.
All right, so we'll close out that item. We'll move to any public participation for the Finance Committee. Hearing none, we will close out that agenda item and move into next meeting planning. So annual town meeting is next week. So we will meet 30 minutes before. So town meeting is at 6:30. So we'll meet at 6 back in, I guess that's the teacher's lounge or whatever it is back in that area.
Yeah.
And we'll do some line item transfers and then close out on any other open business we have before the town meeting. Because I think there's are 3 items I think we are talking about at town meeting are Article 7, Article 21, and Article 24. We've all voted to move to town meeting to vote at that point. Anybody have
No.
any questions? Anything else? Okay. So that'll close the Finance Committee portion of this, and I guess, Cody, do we just move into can we just move into the public forum?
I think we posted for 6, so if you don't mind just waiting the 2 minutes.
Sure, we can wait
just
2
in case people
minutes.
jump on. Just one thing, Jim, on the articles for town meeting,
Yeah.
the numbering is different only because the Board of Selectmen, so you guys reviewed the articles before the Board of Selectmen did.
Right.
And then they removed Article 1, which was to hear the reports of
Yeah,
town
all right.
committees.
Oh, okay, so
they're
it's
renumbered.
just up one then. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
So it's Article
technically,
6.
yes.
Got it. Article 6, Article 20, and Article 24, or 23.
Are the ones that we reserved.
Are the ones we put off to
Still
town
till
meeting.
town
Yes.
meeting, right,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
And Article 20 and 23 are both zoning articles. And the only other financial one was that Article 6, of which we did not end up including the amount for that, which your concern was.
Correct. All right. Okay.
You're going to stay open, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, because we want to start with the card.
Okay.
Right. All right, and now being 6 o'clock, we will open the second public forum on the, for the FY 2026 budget for the town of Halifax. That said, we'll turn it over to Cody to go through his presentation.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. So, as you mentioned, this is the second budget forum for fiscal year 2026 budget. We did one of these earlier in April. We had hoped there'd be more interest, given everyone in town should have received their warrants. They went out in the mail last week. Town meeting is a week from today, 6:30 p.m. over at the elementary school. We asked that residents please bring their warrants to town meeting, and hopefully, get there a little bit earlier too. That way we can get people checked in and get the process moving rather quickly. But I just want to run through the budget process again, run through the budget as a whole, and really open it up to questions that the Public Finance Committee may have regarding the budget. We did create a budget page on our website for the FY26 budget. The previous forum was posted on there. We've posted the budget on there. We've posted previous budget presentations on there. So I think, we've tried to be as responsive as possible to the feedback that we've gotten and be as transparent as possible. So hopefully this helps when we get to town meeting to answer a lot of these questions. So kicking off, I just want to review the process for our budget. So in October, the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen meet to have a budget kickoff meeting. During this meeting, they basically review priorities, establish the budget memorandum. That is then jointly approved. The budget memo is sent out to all departments. This year in particular, we knew we were going to have some financial challenges. So departments were requested to submit two budgets. The first was a 10% cut. So take your fiscal year 2025 budget, reduce it by 10%. And then the second budget was to create a level service budget. So only increase where you need to keep your service levels the same. So anything contractually obligated or things that you need to keep, again, service levels the same, utilities, so on and so forth. Budgets were due in December from all departments. In January, Finance Committee liaisons, myself and Lindsay, our town accountant, started meeting with all the departments to review both of those budgets and understand their requests and then reductions within their 10% budget. Large departments such as police, fire, highway presented to the full Finance Committee, as you know, in public meetings. The Finance Committee then met with the Board of Selectmen to discuss our budget challenges, as we know we had a shortfall, and potential solutions. And then there was a joint decision to utilize some free cash as part of the budget, but also to present a budget within our revenue, so to not go forward with a Proposition 2.5 override for this year, knowing that next year that is likely going to be the case. Just a general overview of our fiscal 26 anticipated revenues. You can see our tax levy. So tax levy is really prior year's figure times 1.025, so 2.5% you can add, plus new growth, which I'll get into shortly. Our local receipts, this is things like our marijuana tax, our motor vehicle excise, permit fees, things that aren't under the tax levy but are coming in local receipts. You can see we do have an increase there of about $137,000, bringing our total local receipts to $2.7 million. State aid, this is the funds that come from the state to support the town. It comes in several forms, such as Chapter 70, which is for education. Chapter 90 is not included in this figure, but it is utilized for roads. We have UGA, which is unrestricted government aid, is another category in there. There's some funds for libraries, but the primary categories are unrestricted government aid and Chapter 70, which is educational funds. We have our enterprise funds. This is our cable TV, which effectively acts like a pass-through. The money that we get from Comcast for our cable TV revenues under our licensing agreement goes into this account, and then the money then gets passed on to Area 58, which provides our cable TV for the town of Halifax. We also have the Water Department Enterprise Fund, and we have the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. So enterprise funds effectively operate like a small business. They're self-sufficient. Their users pay for the services. So it's not supported by the general tax levy. We have excluded debt. So this is debt that is not included in the general tax levy, but is paid for outside of that by the taxpayers. And this is made up of the elementary school project and also some debt over at Silver Lake. We have other, which is some additional revenue that we're utilizing, like wetlands funds, and then we have free cash, which is again being utilized this year in $745,000 to fund the operating budget. And then there's a breakdown of these categories, how much they make up of all of our revenue. So you can see our revenue is primarily made up of our tax levy, and then the next largest category is our state aid at almost 15.5%, and then you have local receipts at almost 9%. The fiscal 26 recommended budget, you can see here, represents a total increase of a little over $1.6 million compared to FY25. It's broken down by category here, and what you'll notice is the primary drivers of this are the cost of education. Halifax Elementary School is an increase of $793,000, and Halifax's assessment of Silver Lake is $455,000. We have some decreases in debt and other, such as our overlay, and then our town departments, that'd be made up of anything within Town Hall, Council on Aging, Public Safety is an increase of $83,000, and then we're seeing a pretty large increase in our insurance and benefits, which is $263,000. Some key budget factors going into fiscal 26. Again, Chapter 70, which is our education funding, in the governor's budget is only a 1.14% increase over fiscal 25. Paired with what you just saw, an elementary school budget of 11%, over 11% increase, right? The state's increase of 1.14% for Halifax just doesn't cut it anymore. That equates to a little over $40,000 for the town in additional education aid. And then that's that total figure from the governor's budget. So when we go through the budget process, we typically utilize the governor's budget because that's the best information we have available at the time. We won't have a final figure until the state passes a budget. You hope that's prior to July, but in some years that doesn't happen until sometime in July or even August. So we utilize the best information we have at the time. New growth in town, estimated at $75,000. You can see that's low, that's historically low. And if you notice, there's just not a lot of growth going on in town. Halifax certainly isn't unique to that. Growth is down throughout the nation, throughout the Commonwealth, but it is hitting Halifax at a much extraordinary level compared to some other communities. We felt 75,000 was low going in, but speaking in with our assessor today, we look like we're going to hit the nail right on the head with that 75,000. As of this morning, we had 70,000 in new growth for fiscal 26. That's without some personal property, which we anticipate at about 5,000. So we're pretty accurate there. Last year, we did end up getting about 148,000 in new growth. I'll note though, we predicted 100,000. Let's see. And we predicted about 100,000 in new growth and about 40,000 in a solar pilot. The solar pilot didn't end up getting enacted, so it all went into new growth. So again, we did a pretty good job estimating that with 148,000. And then you can see the past few fiscal years, and even earlier than fiscal 22, fiscal 20, fiscal 21, it was quite higher in the several $100,000. So we are seeing the decline there. Cost of education, I mentioned this, but our total cost of education, so that's if you take our assessment to Silver Lake and the cost of running our elementary school, it's a $1.25 million increase, 8.6% of our total cost of education, which is historical. The town has never seen that. We ran a 10-year analysis, and the highest we saw was around 5%. So it's never been at this level. You can see 11.63% for Halifax Elementary School, almost $800,000, and then another 5.6 for Silver Lake, $455,000. One thing I do want to make a note of here is when you are reviewing the budget at home and in your warrant, you're going to see these education figures, but then you're also going to see under fixed costs, you're going to see insurance, you're going to see health insurance. I want to make note that that also includes our school employees, right? So the cost of education is actually higher, right, than these two line items because primarily the town of Halifax employees, most of our employees fall under the school. The largest number of our employees, particularly with benefits, are school employees. So those is a dollar figure that's not included in here. So in our total cost of education, it's actually likely about $1 million higher than these two figures combined because we're paying for the health insurance as well as our property insurance, liability insurance. That all comes out of that fixed cost budget toward the end of the budget. I just wanted to make note of that because I've heard some questions on that recently.
Cody, real quick, that's specific to Halifax Elementary School, correct?
It does not include Silver Lake. Is that your question?
Yes, that's what I'm getting.
No.
Right.
Silver Lake budgets for that on their own, but
Right.
that is specific to the elementary school.
Yes.
So if you're looking at the budget, let's see, it's lines 142, which is group insurance town share, right? We're budgeting $1.33 million approximately. About $800,000 of that is to fund the school employees' share of health insurance. And then when you get down to insurance, which again, this is property liability insurance, we're budgeting $355,000. There's a substantial portion of that falls, to insure the buildings over at the schools in that insurance too. So just wanted to make note of it. We don't break it up because it is technically a town cost, right? Employees of the elementary school are town of Halifax employees. Halifax Elementary School is a department of the town of Halifax, so it's all paid out of that. But I do think it's important to note that you see that number. There's been questions, well, that's just for town employees and then the school budget separately. That's not. This is for all town employees, including school employees.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing I'm getting at is a lot of people don't understand that the school is part of the town employees. Right. Mm-hmm. They think it's part of the Silver Lake grouping,
yes.
And it is not.
It is not. We process, so a new employee starts at, that's the other thing. So I think, there's questions as staffing, right? Does the town really need this staffing and this amount of staffing? And what we did, and all of you know this, is we went through our meetings and 10% cuts, was we identified, do we need this staffing? Because from an efficiency point, if we don't need the staffing, we shouldn't have it anyways, whether we're in a budget concerning time or not. And what you find is take the treasurer collector's office, for instance, which they process all of the benefits for the town and new employees. If a new employee starts at the elementary school, we're processing it here at Town Hall through our treasurer collector's office, right? If there's an employee who has benefits, health insurance, and they work at the school, that gets processed through our treasurer collector's office. So they're not just doing the 100 or so town employees, they're also doing the employees that fall into the school department too.
At Halifax
Elementary School, correct.
And regarding line item 142 on the group insurance, approximately $800,000 of that 1.3 million is specific to Halifax Elementary School.
That's correct, yeah. So when we look at the usage for the current year, it was about $800,000. So we can assume insurance rates, typically remain steady unless there's a significant change. We're not seeing significant changes, whether it's in our contribution or the total cost. So we anticipate that to stay relatively level in the rates that employees are taking them. So yeah, about $800,000 of that is Halifax Elementary School employees.
Right.
And that's why I say between that and some of these other, insurance costs, it's about another $1 million for our cost of education that's not represented in those two lines, Silver Lake assessment and Halifax Elementary School cost.
Right. Yep.
Another fixed cost where we're seeing an increase are Plymouth County retirement. So Plymouth County retirement, this is a requirement to fund our pension assessment, is an increase of 7.9%. That's now over $2 million for fiscal 26. And we also are seeing an 8% increase in our health insurance cost. So we budgeted for an 8% increase there.
And once again, does that retirement insurance include the Halifax Elementary School or not?
It's not paid to Plymouth County Retirement, no.
No, okay.
The teachers are done through Mass.
Yeah, okay.
It's a,
Right.
yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, Mass Teachers. So that's a little bit different, but we do process it, right? So that's another thing. I think all of those things are done here within the town. That again, our treasurer collector payroll is another thing. Or we process all vendor invoices too. So if a bill gets paid out of the elementary school, we're processing it here at Town Hall. It goes to Lindsay's office in the accounting office. It goes to her side, and then it goes to our treasurer collector's office, and we're actually the ones cutting the check and sending them out. So I think that's. I just want residents to understand the process here. That the town. This is a big operation, and it's not just the town side of things; it's also the school side of things.
Yeah, we're the central office for Halifax Elementary School.
Essentially, for those things, yes.
From a financial standpoint.
Yes, exactly. For, administration, there's part of the superintendency district. So the administrative side, obviously, they report to Dr. Prue, the superintendent, and they, prepare the budget. But for the actual day-to-day processing of things, that does fall under our umbrella here at Town Hall. I mentioned earlier the budget, the plan this year is to utilize a portion of free cash to fund the operating budget. You've heard me say it many times, but it was not recommended from a financial point of view, but the board and the finance committee did recommend to utilize that. We utilize free cash typically for capital items as part of our capital plan, so we did have to reduce some items out of the capital plan. There can also be implications on our bond rating because we're using one-time revenues for recurring expenses. And as I mentioned, it creates a larger fiscal cliff going into fiscal 27. So we know fiscal 27 is going to be incredibly challenging. Right off the bat, you're starting with $745,000 that you need to come up with, on top of Silver Lake used one-time funds again this year. So we can anticipate a large increase needed over there. And again, unless something significant changes at the state level, we can probably anticipate higher costs of education as well. And that's before we even talk about any of our general government operating costs. So in essence, fiscal 27 is going to be a very challenging year. From fiscal 26 capital plan, we removed the cost of an ambulance replacement, one police cruiser, and repairs to our blacksmith shop. All of those things will likely need to be done in the future, particularly with an ambulance. The cost was about $500,000 this year. So as time goes on, that'll likely increase. And I know I've mentioned this before, so residents will say, well, we just got an ambulance. We don't need another ambulance. That's true. We did just get an ambulance. We have two ambulances here in Halifax. We have one that we just got. One's a 2019, a little bit older. That's the one that was up for replacement. And right now, it is doing okay. But there's a 3-year lead time for an ambulance. So if you order an ambulance today, you're looking at 3 years to get that new ambulance. So those are the things we're trying to plan ahead for. So that's another item that'll need to be addressed next year. Even with all of that being said, there were some additional measures that we had to undertake to present a balanced budget. That included reduction in the workforce in the administration and Board of Selectmen's office, the building maintenance department, and the library. We also made several expense account reductions in the fire department, Board of Health, Council on Aging, and the library. Halifax Elementary School is also making several reductions in staffing in their expense accounts. Any questions before I dig into the budget itself and start going kind of line by line? Anything from anyone in the room? Frank, you look like you might have something.
I have several questions, but I'm gonna let you roll with the line by line and see if you hit with them.
Okay.
Before I jump ahead of you, and you got to backtrack.
Is there anyone on Zoom who has any questions up till this point? Again, I'm going to go line by line, at least touching on the items that are significantly changing. But if there's anything on the general presentation at this point, I can answer that. If you do have a question on Zoom, just raise your hand. Okay. I do not see anything, so I will continue.
I can't see. I can't see the screen. I wonder if, Cody, can we turn one of those
Oh, sure.
screens this direction since we have a closed or a small room today?
He should work in IT. He turned that TV really high.
How's that?
Thank you. There you go. Man behind the curtain.
All right. So the first significant change that I want to make note of is in the Selectman Clerical. This is where we're making a reduction of over $20,000. We are eliminating one of the positions within my office, the office assistant. We are including some additional funding for some minutes clerks because, that's something we're still going to need to get done, minutes, but, the position itself is being eliminated there. In our legal account, there's an increase of $30,000 being proposed. This is really twofold. The first is, we are not in compliance with the MBTA zoning law. The town chose not to be in compliance with that. Take it for what it is, but the state does feel like it's a law, right? It is a law, and we are not in compliance with that, and there likely will be ramifications. So there will likely be some legal costs associated with that. And then we also can anticipate, we have 5 of our bargaining agreements they're going into their last year, so we're going to have to renegotiate 5 collective bargaining agreements. With that, Labor Council has to be involved at a little bit of a higher level than a typical year. So those are kind of the 2 main drivers there. The next large increase is in our IT expense. Again, this is most of our contracts, which come from the state contract, are 5% annually, and then we also are now paying for the full cost of our online licensing and permitting out of the IT expense. We had initially gotten a grant which covered us for the first year, and that covered us partially this year, and now the full cost is being borne by the IT expense budget. Let's see, office machines, an increase of $5,500. This is primarily because of postage. We're anticipating that we're actually going to go over in postage this year. That's one of the things that are going to have to be a line item transfer due to just the increase in cost of postage, but also just volume. It has gone up a little bit more than we anticipated. Let's see. You'll see a decrease of $5,600 in the treasurer expense, and then a $4,900 decrease in collector expense. We moved that into one budget. Again, treasurer collectors department has been in a combined office for a number of years now. The expense accounts really should have been combined. It's just a cleanup thing here. So if you look at treasurer collector expense, that there's an increase there, but those are the 2 combined rather than having them separate. Let's see. Recruitment and employment costs, an increase of $10,000. This covers all recruitment and employment and training costs for the town, the general government side of things. So when we post positions, right, online, there's a cost associated with that. That comes out of here. If we hire a new employee and they are subject to physical and or drug and alcohol testing, that cost comes out of here. If an employee is going to some sort of professional development, for the most part, that comes out of here. Like I mentioned with our new collective bargaining agreement, there's a $500 per person that they can take advantage of professional development. There is a bargaining unit max of, it's either 3,000 or 3,500. So, we want employees to do that. That's a good thing. A better employee, a more educated employee is better for the town. But we really needed to budget a little bit more for that. So that you can see there's a $10,000 increase there. Let's see, conservation wages. This is made up of a shared conservation agent with the town of Bridgewater. So that's the contractual rate there. And this also includes a 10-hour-a-week administrative assistant for the conservation department. When we put the budget together in fiscal 25, so that $41,555, we didn't know what the wages were going to be. We hadn't gone into that relationship with Bridgewater yet. But now that we have those figures, we have an actual dollar amount, so we know what that cost is going to be for fiscal 26. Police chief salary and deputy chief salary. So I just want to make note of this. In the warrant, this does show up as let me get the exact line here, line 45, and it does say chief salary. There is an asterisk, and I just want to point this out. And it says this line includes the salaries for both the police chief and the deputy police chief. So just want to make sure everyone's aware, $283,841 is not what our police chief is getting paid. That includes the salary of the chief and the deputy chief, and that is noted in the warrant. But I've gotten some questions on that, so that's a combined for the two of them. We have a significant decrease in the wages for our police department, which again, you've heard me say it, our public safety is pretty much a 0% increase from fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. That's unheard of. And that is primarily because most of our increases are being absorbed by this decrease in the police wages. And that is because a lot of our senior officers have retired, and we have new patrolmen coming in that are making, a little bit of a lower rate than our senior officers. And also some of our higher paid patrolmen have moved on to the rank of sergeant, but in that ranking they're on the lower side of sergeant, and the higher paying sergeants, right, have retired out too. So it really was beneficial for us from a budgetary point this year. Don't anticipate that to continue. It really is kind of a one-time thing.
Right.
So
head count's the same.
Head count is the same, correct. Head count is the same in this budget. We did have to increase the cruiser maintenance line to $20,000. The reason for that is we are only replacing one cruiser. As I mentioned this year, the other one got reduced out of the capital plan. And, we just can anticipate there may be some issues. Hopefully not. Hopefully we don't have to use this. The $7,000 figure came from, and Mr. Smith can probably attest to this, but front ends in cruisers go often, right? And to replace a front end in a cruiser, you're talking about $7,000. So that's where we came up with that figure.
That's cheap at $20,000.
Yeah, right. It is. We've been able to get away with that primarily because we've had an updated fleet, that's not aging. We've kept good care of it, and then we really get rid of them before they start having serious issues. Hopefully that continues, but again, with this year, there's some uncertainty. We did budget that increase. Fire department, the really only major increase comes in our wages, and that's primarily being driven by our overtime. We have a department of 10 full-time firefighters, and then it's made up of call firefighters that subsidize the department. And with 10 firefighters, if someone is out on an FMLA or has something going on, vacation, sick, we have to fill that shift. And it's essentially overtime. So we're seeing a lot of overtime. We've had a lot of need for that over the past year as well. You're also seeing, if you watch kind of the news in the community, there's been just an uptick in fires and fire response in general. We're seeing it, in speaking with the chief, our call volume is hundreds more higher at this point this year compared to last year at this time. And that's a combination of, fires themselves, but also EMS responses too. So we're seeing calls backs from that too, which is overtime as well.
Yeah, but let me ask this question. Like, we had to go down to Otis the other night with the brush trucks, and do we get reimbursement for that from the state, or is that on our dime?
No, that's mutual aid. That's us.
So there's no cost reimbursement back for the time expended to bring in replacement firefighters.
Nope, that is the town. Just like, if we have a situation, which we do often, where we have to call in mutual aid to us, we don't, we're not expected to pay for them.
Okay.
It's a kind of mutual,
right.
We're there for you, you're there for us situation. But no, that's effectively on our dime. Under public safety, other, which is emergency management and building inspector, we're not seeing any significant increases there. Dispatch services is another one I want to make note of. So we've our cost to the Rock has been $200,000 for the past several years. Actually, we were anticipating an increase this year, a significant value, but they were able to get some grant funding to subsidize that increase. That is something that the committee should be aware of going into next year. We may see, a sizable increase there in the range of, about $50,000 is probably a fair estimate. But again, we were able to keep it at $200,000 this year, which was a huge benefit to the town. I've touched on the cost of education at length here, but again, this is how it'll appear in the warrant. 11.63% for Halifax Elementary School, 5.6% for Silver Lakes assessment. We did have a decrease in our excluded debt by about $40,000. And again, I just want to make sure that everybody's aware, excluded debt does not free up the money to go to something else, right? So excluded debt means the voters of the town approved us to borrow this money, and it's paid for in addition to our regular tax levy. When this decreases, the assessment to the residents and their taxes decreases. It's not like another part of the budget where that money is then freed up and can be rerouted somewhere else. And that's why, it's important, it's good for the residents that this is decreasing, but it's not something where it creates more funds for the town that is available. Under our highway department, highway wages, this is primarily contractually, but we also move some funds. So in a finance committee meeting, it had come up that our part-time summer employees under the highway department, which were basically mowing and taking care of fields and things like that, were under our cemetery budget. That was just kind of a cleaning up item there. So we moved a little over $3,000 from there into the wages of the highway department. So that is part of the increase there. Under stormwater management, you see a decrease of $44,400. That's not because we're doing less for our stormwater management. That was the portion of the stormwater management that falls under capital, so projects that we actually need to do. If you drive by the elementary school, you can see some work going on over there. That's one of those projects this year. But there's several requirements as far as our MS4 permitting through the EPA and DEP that we have to do. So you will see an item on the capital plan this year to fund the capital projects for stormwater management. What that allowed us to do was decrease the operating budget here by $44,400. And given the tough financial times, we were able to utilize that funds elsewhere in the budget to free up the cash there. In our water department, the largest increase to make note of here is in the interest on temporary debt. So I've explained this before, but the town previously approved at town meeting the upgrades to our treatment plant facility. About a little over $3 million is what the town authorized for borrowing. What we were able to do as part of our financial team was we used some ARPA funds, about $600,000. We've been very fiscally responsible with our water department and our retained earnings. So we've been able to apply retained earnings to the cost of that project year after year. You'll see another $500,000 being requested this coming year for that. And with that, we're left with about $1.3 million of funds that we needed to actually borrow. If we were to go out to borrowing as authorized, a long-term borrowing for a municipality is a 10-year requirement. So we can't borrow for less than 10 years. And it's not like a personal loan where if you want to pay it off early, you pay it off early and you're off the hook. There's no, you can just pay it off. If we pay it off, we can't pay it off early. We have a debt schedule we have to continue to pay. We have interest that we have to continue to pay. So looking at the good fiscal position that we're in with our water retained earnings and our water department, it didn't make sense for us to bond a 10-year project for this because we'd be locked in at 4 or 5% interest rate for 10 years. So what we've done is a bond anticipated note, right? So it's a 1-year borrowing, it's a short-term borrowing, where we are only responsible for paying the interest for that year. And we're likely we'll have this paid off in 3 or 4 years, right? Rather than the 10 years. And so you do have to budget for the interest on it, which again is about that $60,000. So a little bit confusing. So I apologize if it doesn't make sense, but it's a good financial decision for the town and saves us long-term, in the range of hundreds of thousands of dollars by not going out to long-term borrowing because we're able to pay that down. So we just rolled over another $1.3 million this week. The bond actually will go through. The closing of the bond that's down from 1.6 last year. If this 500,000 gets approved, right, you can just do some math. That brings you down to 800,000. And if you're able to bring it down over the next year after that, this is likely paid off by fiscal 28, where you'd be going out much longer term. Let's see. The next one is our solid waste management. So this is trash and recycling. You're really not seeing any major increases there. The cost of the collection disposal, that's our contract with Allstate Waste. We budgeted a $7,100 increase just to cover our costs. There's an increased cost for the contract itself, but then we also pay by the ton for the disposal of the trash, so that does go up $5 a ton in the next fiscal year.
Is this the last year of the contract, Cody? Or is there one more?
Fiscal 26 will be the last year of the contract, yes.
Okay.
Health and Human Services, the primary increase is in our landfill engineering and monitoring, so almost a $10,000 increase there. For those that aren't aware, the town actually owns the landfill over by the highway barn, the Hemlock Lane landfill. That is a municipal landfill. It's capped, but we do have requirements for reporting and testing on that. That's what we've historically done, about $20,000. Many of you probably have heard of this PFAS, and we are now required to test for that. With that, we are still we're in the end stage of getting those proposals, but we're anticipating about another $10,000 a year to do those monitoring wells and test for PFAS. The next large increase is in our veterans agent salary. I've mentioned this previously, but our veterans agent, in order to be accredited in the state of Massachusetts, which allows him to prepare and submit claims on behalf of veterans and their families, they have to work a minimum of 20 hours per week. Our current position is a stipended position, which only pays him for about 10 to 12 hours per week. This would bump that up to the 20 hours a week, so our veterans agent can remain accredited and continue to provide those services to the community. This is paired with Article 1 now, which is the Wage and Personnel Bylaw Amendment, which removes that position from a stipended position and makes it, I believe it's a grade 6 just position. So very important there that we are able to do that and continue to provide those services. And then just our veterans benefits. This is what the town gets reimbursed for a portion of this from the state, but so we'll get reimbursed next year for this year. It's a payback, basically. That's another item that's part of our state aid. But we build a little bit of a buffer in here because you just don't know. We look at our averages over the past couple of years, what the average benefit amount, how many benefits were given out. But we also want to make sure we have funds if someone comes in and needs to be added to these benefits as well. So we build a couple of extras into the budget as well. If it doesn't get utilized, it's either available at the end of the year for line item transfers, or it goes back to the town for free cash. Library, I mentioned, we have some reductions there. We're reducing the expense account by a little over $6,700. Our wages, it doesn't look like a huge decrease from the prior year, but you got to remember, included in that is the contractual increase, not contractual because they're not union, but the 2% COLA is also included in there. So we're reducing one 18-hour-a-week position, and we are also reducing a 40-hour-a-week position to 35 hours per week. So a total of reduction of 23 hours per week that we're eliminating at the library for fiscal 26. And then the director's salary, the budget was put together while negotiations and the process was still ongoing for hiring a new library director. They have signed an offer letter and they're starting next week, actually. So this will end up being less, but we're gonna, again, it's budgeted. It's not a bad thing to have it in there. It's only a couple $1,000s more than the actual, but that's the reason for the decrease. We weren't sure where it was going to end up. Our debt schedule, this is again Halifax Elementary School roof repairs, decrease of $7,600. That's just as part of our debt schedule. I already mentioned Plymouth County retirement, but just to give you an idea, it's almost $150,000 increase for our assessment to Plymouth County, and that's we have to do that. We're obligated to do that to pay that. Plymouth County retirement will be fully funded in 2031. So when 2031 comes, this number will significantly be reduced, but until we get there, we're going to see these increases at this level, unfortunately. The group insurance town share I mentioned, almost $100,000 increase. Medicare, that's a percentage of wages. So we do a calculation based on our projected wages for the town, and you come out to that amount there. A $7,000 increase because we were a little bit under budgeted this year, so that's why it's so significant there. Let's see, insurance, again, this is property, liability, insurance, workers' comp in there. And then we have a couple of reductions in our gas and oil and heating oil. And that is primarily because we have, as far as the heating oil, we've added heat pumps to several of our buildings as part of our Green Communities grant. It didn't cost the town any money, so we were able to get some grant funding for that. With that, we anticipate some little bit of a higher electric cost because we're going to be using more electricity, but we do anticipate less oil usage for the heating. And then as far as our gas and oil for all departments, that's our vehicles, and we've transitioned to a couple electric vehicles here at Town Hall that we're not using gasoline for anymore. And also when we looked at kind of the trend over the past few years, we felt comfortable reducing that by a couple $1,000s there. So that is an overview, kind of line by line, of the budget. I touched on at least the big points that I thought where things stuck out as large increases, large decreases. But if there's anything that I missed or that you would like to discuss, I'll start with the Finance Committee, and we'll go there. And then if there's anyone else in the room, then we can go to Zoom.
I have just probably one question, because we didn't cover it here. So I understand that the elementary school principal is left or is leaving. Mm-hmm. So they've opened a search committee, I believe, for that. You know, and looking at what they were forecasting as the budget for that salary, is that still going to remain the same, or is there?
So, you know, what I would say is the elementary school is different in their line item autonomy. So you know, the town approves a dollar figure for them, and effectively, you know, they present how they think they're going to spend it, but they don't have to spend it that way. So if for some reason and I haven't spoken with the administration, so I'm not sure, but if for some reason they felt that they, you know, found a candidate that they needed to compensate at a higher level, then they would ultimately, you know, pull it from somewhere else within the budget. But I would anticipate no impact on the figure here, because they effectively can move things around, where with us, you know, that it's a little bit different on the town side. We can't just say, okay, we have this much available in this department. If we need to increase the salary of a person, we can just reduce our expense budget somewhere else. We don't have that flexibility. So I think, given the flexibility, they should be okay.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had right now, yeah.
Cody, I've got a few questions.
Yes, good.
I'm glad you touched on Article 3, line item 45, the chief's salary, because there's been a lot of misinformation or not understanding of why that number was what it was, what it is, because it is a combined salary, and people don't seem to understand that, and there's a lot of misinformation, and they figure that it's 240-something thousand is the chief's salary. So I think it's going to be important that at town meeting, and tonight what you did is to make sure that either the chief or yourself or us, you know, kind of lay that out so people fully understand why that's combined as a salary. Okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, in the future, one of the things that the town could look at is just naming it professional salaries, right? So a lot of communities will do that, police, professional. But I don't know how much clearer we could be. We did put an asterisk, and it does say police chief and deputy chief. If you have recommendations, you know, would love to hear them so we can clean this up for next year.
Well, it looks like a lot of people missed that asterisk.
Yeah.
But we just need to, you know, facts and truth are what matter. And and then the next one up that I have is Article 16. On page 24 of the warrant. A lot of misinformation regarding that article there as well, of why we're paying old bills.
Yeah, I mean,
and no dollar amount assigned to Article 16 like it's a blank check.
Yeah, so Article 16 is very common. I mean, if you look in most municipalities, there's a prior year bills. So, you know, the way that our budget works as a municipality is, you know, town meeting approves a fiscal 20, so we're in fiscal 25. Town meeting approves a fiscal 25 budget. Once our previous fiscal year budget is closed out, those funds are specific to the current fiscal year. So that means if we, you know, the fiscal year ends June 30th, if we get a bill from June, the prior fiscal year, and we've already closed our books, which we are legally obligated to do, the Department of Revenue.
Yeah, by the middle of July, if I'm correct.
We are not able to pay that bill with the current year's funds because that's not what they were appropriated for. Town meeting has ultimate authority. So I was notified a couple months ago that the school department came across a couple bills that were, you know, from prior fiscal year. Again, not uncommon. I'm not aware of any on the municipal, you know, the town side of things. But you know, the reason that it's written, so in the motion at town meeting, it has to say how much it's for, where it's coming from, what bill it is. The reason that it's written as an article and not very specific, like maybe some people would like to see, is if another item came up, right, between the time that we finalized this in town meeting, we would not be able to approve it. And now we are potentially going another 2 years, you could be saying, with not paying a bill. And then we could end up in some trouble because, you know, town needs to pay their bills. So it'll be in the motion at town meeting.
Okay.
I am still only aware of that one from the school, but it's written that way because if something else comes up, that way there can be in the motion at town meeting. But town meeting still has to vote on it. It still has to be in the motion. Town meeting will be aware of what it is that they're voting on. And this is not an uncommon item to have in the warrant.
It's very common for vendors to bill way after the fiscal year. They just do
And this is just for the previous fiscal year, not other fiscal years.
For this one, again, the only one I know of right now is from just last fiscal year, an item. Technically, there could be something that was from a prior fiscal year. Right. In this case, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's important at town meeting that everyone will know what it is, how much it is, and if there's questions, you know, I tell all of our department heads here, you know, you need to be prepared to speak on those things. Again, it's not a town department; it's an item of the school, so they should be able to speak on what it is. But yeah, just the way that the law is written, anything that comes in from a prior fiscal year has to have town meeting approval.
Sure. So just for my edification, so since town meeting is next Monday, and let's just, you know, hypothetically say that it's been approved by the town, this article, and you get an invoice from FY24. What's the process at that point?
It has to go to the next town meeting.
Next town meeting.
Okay. Yeah. So the only thing that would be approved is whatever specific invoices get approved at town meeting. This doesn't authorize us to just write checks for any bill that's come in the past. There has to be specifics as far as how much it is, what the actual invoice is, and where the money is going to come from, because town meeting has to approve all those things.
Sure, correct. But just the information out there is somewhat confusing to a lot of people and don't fully understand it, even though somebody actually articulated it well out there on social media, what the Mass General Law was regarding that and how that worked, but people still had a tendency to believe that that doesn't need to happen. But it does.
It's very common.
Right. It is common. It's common in general business as well. After you close your fiscals out.
Right.
To get old stuff in. It's not nice, but it happens. Okay. And then my last question that I have right now. Articles, Alan already did 22. He explained what he had going on there. But 23 through 29, Articles 23 through 29, there's going to be a lot of questions regarding those, and part of that's going to be is who's financing all of those articles, where's that money going to come from? And are all those articles technically legal, and are we going to be able to speak on behalf of the town regarding both of those at town meeting?
So I'll address your question, I think, in two different fashions here. The first, regarding legality, I've met with council several times. We're reviewing the legality. We've been reviewing the legality of each of these, and that's really where it stops with us, right, from the official town capacity as far as legality. You know, I can tell you, myself and council are prepared and will be very prepared to speak on these from a legal standpoint.
Okay.
Several of these are not legal as written, or, you know, I should say, if they're voted as written in the warrant, they'll have no legal effect because the town will not be able to implement them because they're illegal in nature, right? So we'll be able to speak to those things, but a lot of it is the motion too, right? So the article says one thing, what really matters is the motion, because that's what's being actually moved. The article gives an idea of what it is, and then the motion is the actual kind of the legal language. Because they're petitioned articles, I don't know what the motions will be, but we've done a thorough legal review of each of the petitioned articles as far as their legality. As far as funding sources, that's for whoever, you know, and that's where there's some issues with some of these articles, right? So some of them, you know, require financing or funding, but they don't identify where the funding comes from.
Correct.
So again, that's where if they were to be passed as written, we can't do anything with them. If someone were to want a funding source, they would need to identify how much and where is it coming from. We don't have any extra money available in the levy this year, so we can't just add things to the budget. Right? There was a time in the town where there was some money left on the table, and if someone wanted to increase a budget, we could just tax that amount, right? Additional amount. That's not the case, right? We're taxing almost all of our capacity here, or all of our capacity. So they would need to identify where it comes from, and that would likely mean in a reduction to something else, or you know, it could be part of the capital plan, free cash. Again, they're kind of on the proponents to identify where that comes from.
Okay. We'll be able to speak on behalf of that at town meeting, correct?
As far as the legality and
yes.
Yes. I mean, it's not for us to identify some funding sources for them.
Correct.
But, you know, we'll certainly, you know, if it comes up, we'll certainly let people know, you know, as written, that's not legal. This is a concern. You didn't identify a funding source. You didn't identify an amount. Things like that, general guidance.
Right.
But we're very bound. As crazy as it sounds, you actually get into like campaign finance here, because technically these are political things, right? And as town officials, you know, we can't use any sort of town resources towards those motivations. So that's where, particularly in my capacity in legal counsels, we have to look at it from just a high level. Is it legal? You know, and this is what it means, but nothing else beyond that.
The MBTA article, I believe that's 25, is that correct? Page,
The petitioned article?
Yeah, page
Yes.
28.
That's correct.
Can we touch on that a little bit tonight, what that article's about? Because there's a lot of misinformation regarding that out there as well.
I can tell you what it reads. I'm not the petitioner, so I'm not sure exactly what the petitioner is looking to accomplish. But in essence, I believe that it really starts with a summary of kind of the MBTA zoning, and then it looks like that they would like for the town to do some sort of study to identify economic impacts of the MBTA zoning.
Yeah, once again, there's no means of funding for that, and MBTA zoning no longer exists because it was voted down. Mm-hmm. That correct statement? Am I speaking properly on that?
No, that's accurate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing, I didn't bring up this point, but I believe Chairman Bruno had brought up the point, that the article predetermines, right, that it's an unfunded mandate. So while they ask for a study to be done, they also predetermine that it's already unfunded.
Right.
So, you know, if the town were to do such a study, the idea of the study would be to identify the cost and is it unfunded. You wouldn't predetermine that it's unfunded prior to completing a study where you're asking the study to be done. So that was one of the concerns that Mr. Bruno had brought up from the Board of Selectmen.
All right, well, that's all I had. Thank you, Cody.
You're welcome. Anything else from any members of the Finance Committee? EJ looks like he has something.
No, I am good. I'm good.
Okay. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Big crowd. No? Okay.
Anyone on Zoom?
If there's anyone on Zoom with any questions, please raise your hand. I don't see anything. So, I mean, I really just would encourage the community to get involved. You know, again, I've only been here 2.5 years, but in my tenure here, I hear complaints, concerns that, you know, we're not being transparent enough, that we're not doing enough to get the information out there. And so, you know, at least from my point of view and from the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, really have made a concerted effort this year to get the information out there. You know, these things take a lot of time, a lot of preparation, and it's our job to make sure that the community is aware. But this is our second budget forum, a week before town meeting, so you'd hope people are engaged. Everyone has gotten their warrant, and I appreciate everyone that's come, but you know, it's very, very small contingent of the town. So I hope that, you know, if people are watching this afterwards, you know, if they have questions that come up, please feel free to email me. I'll be more than happy to provide responses then. I understand people are busy. It's why we try to do these things in the evenings. It's why we give other opportunities. You know, the Finance Committee meetings are all open meetings, and you guys are still on Zoom for the most part. So it's, you know, it's a little bit easier to log in. But I just think, you know, we hear, particularly at last town meeting, a lot of concern that, you know, people felt we weren't prepared, and I think we were. We've been prepared going into every meeting, but we're particularly prepared here. I can't tell you how many hours I know you've spent, but I've spent doing this. So I guess it's a little disheartening when you have these budget forums, because the community has said that we want these, and the showing is little to none. So I hope the community really digs into these resources, and if there's other means for us to get this information out, let us know. You know, let myself know. You can let Lindsay know, the town accountant. You can let the Finance Committee know, because if there's other avenues, we certainly want to make sure we're doing our best. But I don't know any other way to get the information out there. EJ?
I just want to expand on what you're saying right now, Cody, because I think it's such an important point. You know, we got to where we got to for 26, which is fantastic. We all know what we're looking towards for 27. The more people get involved in that process now, the more streamlined the process will be overall. And what I mean by that, and I don't mean this to sound negative in any way, but it slows things down when we have to backtrack to retrace our steps as we get to the point where we start to need to make decisions for what we're going to fund and what we're not going to fund. So what that means is the more participation we have up front and throughout the process, the more smooth the end result will be, something that we can arrive at. But when we as a community have to sit down and continuously talk about how we got somewhere, that's not bringing us how we're going to get through something, right? And it's important that we try to rally together and do these things ahead of time, not just when we hit that point of crisis.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Yes, we listened to the feedback from last town meeting, and I feel we made really well decisions in this year's budget based on what the residents were asking for, and we implemented them in a lot of different fashions. And It is disheartening that not many people have shown up here tonight, which is fine. There are quite a few on Zoom this evening, but, you know, we've worked hard at this from the town, from the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and all of the departments, and your office as well. And a lot was put into this work, and I feel that we've got a very good package going in and town meeting here.
Very good. All right, that is all I have. One last opportunity if there's any questions. Anything else I missed? So just a reminder, town meeting a week from today over at the elementary school. 6:30, we're planning to begin town meeting. Please get there early, check in. Check-in will start around 5:45, so get there as early, close to 5:45 as possible. Get seated. We want to get everyone in and out of there in a timely fashion so we can hopefully get through these articles. We have about 30 articles that we need to get through. So the quicker that everyone's able to get in, we're able to get started. And hopefully the more prepared people are. So hopefully people watch this. And if you have questions in the meantime, let us know. We can answer those. And hopefully get this done in one night.
Yeah, speaking with Town Clerk Sue a few weeks back, she said that they would have more poll pads ready to go for check-in for people than we had at the last
So we have
one.
double the amount. We
Yes.
are renting 2 additional poll pads. So we'll have 4 people checking residents in. So as long as you're here, we're going to get you in very quickly. We're having the gym set up as our primary location. We'll have a secondary room set up over the elementary school if we need it for overflow. We look forward to town meeting.
Should be good. All right. If there are no...
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. Appreciate all the work. If there are no further questions from either the attendees on Zoom or here from the Finance Committee or in the audience, then can I get a motion to close the meeting?
So moved. Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Cheryl.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes to close.
EJ.
Yes.
Bill Smith.
Yes.
Mike Rignetta.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.